So today I'll be doing the split premiere guide. I know some of you have been asking if it will happen, and here it is. And I will do one for Lotus next week as well. Don't you worry about that. And the team comp we're going to play is this one. Now, I'll get into why I picked this team comp, which is Omen, Jett, Raze, Sage, and Cypher. Now, this is not the meta comp. And on a lot of my other guides, I've basically just given you, kind of what is the pro meta comp right now, and kind of talked about it like that. This is not the pro meta comp, of choice right now. But I've picked this for a couple of reasons. One, I feel like a lot of you will probably feel pretty confident in using Sage on this map. A lot of you, I'm trying to make this obviously for everyone essentially, and I know that for a lot of you, you will have just always played Sage on Split, and so therefore, this is a way of getting Sage into Split, and it's still a comp that, some pro teams do use, and I just feel like this is kind of a simplistic comp that hopefully, won't be too hard to understand either. Now, this is the meta comp, which has some similarities. You're still playing double duelist with Astra, Viper, and Skye. And so if you feel like you could run this comp instead and you have some understanding, or if you watch quite a few pro games, then by all means, go for this comp. It's a good comp. I just thought that, yeah, some of you might be a little uncomfortable without playing a Sentinel, and, you might want to play Sage on this map, so that's why I didn't go for it. And in terms of alternatives for the comp that we'll be playing, I would say keep the Sage and the Cypher. You could play Astra instead of Omen. It will change some of the things, but you could. And you can play Skye for either of the two duelists if you want to as well. It will change some things, of course, but you will get some benefits from it as well. So with that said, let's just jump in to the defensive side. And so we're going to start off with some of our defensive setups, and this is what I would say our default setup is going to look like, or something like this. We've got Omen over here towards B main, and often what this Omen is going to be doing is throwing a one-way. We'll get into that in a second. You've got Raze and Sage here in kind of towards B heaven. You've got Jett and Cypher playing over towards A. This is going to be our most normal defensive setup. Okay, so when you're playing Omen here in towards B main, which you will be doing a lot here as Omen on this defensive side, there is something you simply must be able to do, and that is place a one-way here in B main. Now, with the Omen changes that were made, quite a while back at this point, one-ways have got harder to do, but you simply must learn how to do this one-way, right? You must learn how to do it. It is just that simple. But you also have to be careful, and I'm not sure if I can actually replicate this or not, but there are certain parts, if we actually just come to it like this, you'll see it in a second, there are certain parts of this place, like there's multiple places where you can put this one-way, right? You can put it just there, as you can see, but some of them fall down. I'm not quite sure why. I think this one might fall down. No, that one stayed up. In certain positions, certain ones fall down. I don't really know why that is, but just know that that is the case. That sometimes you'll get a green arrow and it'll say that it'll stay up there, but then it doesn't. Can't really explain why. Probably just some kind of like little glitch there that hopefully Riot can fix one day. But yeah, you need to know how to do this one way. You simply, must learn. There you go. One fell down. See, right? You're going to get a green arrow like that, and sometimes it will fall down. But simply, you must learn how to do this one way, and you need to know, really, and I would go into a custom game and just practice this if you want to. You need to know, really, to be able to throw this from, quite far back. And as I said, there's quite a few different little positions you can do it on, because there's quite a bit going on here. But you can see it's not the easiest to do straight away, so I would get into a custom game, get learning, where exactly are the places where you can actually throw it, what's the height, what do I need to be looking for, those kind of things, so that you can get this one way up from not just here, because you also want to be faking the one way, when you're back here, right? You want it to seem like, oh yeah, I'm always defending this, but sometimes you're actually back here, or maybe you're even in heaven, right? Maybe you're not even playing on site, maybe you're off site completely, but you still want to be able to, do this at certain points and practice this more than I have, because you can see that I'm pretty useless at finding exactly where these positions are. So yeah, go into a custom game, practice that one way from all these different positions wherever you might be playing, because you will need it and it will be very beneficial to you. Now, apart from that, you're going to have Sage and normally Raze in here towards B heaven as well. The reason that you might be questioning, like, why not put one of them in towards kind of the vents area here, is because if you put someone in towards vents and they very quickly do a B split on you, you can be in a lot of trouble if there's only two people here. As, if pressure comes to this Omen and B main, this Sage wants to look this way to help out, but then, if they smoke this guy off and come this way, then this Sage dies, and then this Omen's going to die, and then it's just going to be a bad time. So putting 2 players in here can be pretty useful because, you know, it's much harder to come fast up ropes, right? This is just something that a lot of people won't do, right? People won't sprint up here and go quickly up there because this is just such a small area that, you know, often people will go slowly and approach with real caution coming out of here because, you know, it's such a small choke point and whatnot, and you're going up a rope, so it's not great for you. Whereas B Heaven, you can get punished pretty hard. So having 2 players in here can often be pretty good. And for Sage, obviously, there's going to be 2 main walls that you're going to throw when in this kind of position. The first wall is a wall that we all, you know, love, of course, with the old wall across here on mid. Very, very common wall to use. I would suggest that you definitely don't use this wall every round, though, because any team that knows what they're doing will just come and destroy it. However, against ecos and things like that, this is going to be a very good wall, right? Anytime your opponent is on an eco pistol round, this can be a very strong wall as well, because it allows you to rotate through mid pretty quickly, right? And if they don't destroy it, it's a ton of information. So yeah, use this wall when you feel like it's appropriate, especially towards save rounds. I think it can be pretty good because it'll take a while for them to destroy it. And the second sage wall you're going to use is this one here in B Heaven. And you're going to use this one, and you might think, well, why would we use this one? Well, the thing is, when you use the wall in, you know, just kind of the normal mid, your opponents, you know, they spawn what? Here, they can just easily run out and just destroy it straight away, and then they can go away or whatever, right? Whereas this one, they're going to have to, you know, slowly approach mid, come and, you know, take this space, use a bit of utility to get here, and that might take them some time, right? And so you can delay using this wall, right? You don't have to use this wall straight away. You can just be, you know, jiggle peeking this angle, waiting to see if they come up, maybe use like a sage slow, right, just to slow them even more if you do think that they're there, and then you can kind of, as they start coming in, then you can use this wall, right, as they actually get up to this point. And at that point, they might be thinking, well, are we actually going to come and destroy this wall? Because now when you come all the way up here, you're in a much more like committed position as the attackers, right? You're not just all the way back in spawn, you know, we can just run back. You are more committed to kind of being here, right? And maybe a raise nade comes in or whatever, right? You can push them back with stuff like that. And so it's just a bit more dangerous for the attackers to come up there and just be destroying a wall, because it's kind of more your kind of space. And so, yeah, this can be a very effective wall, particularly the later that you put it down, right? That's another thing. Often you'll be putting down this wall in mid here, you know, this one. This will go up right at, normally at the start of a round. But this one, you can kind of wait, be safe, you know, just jiggle peek, just see if your opponents are there. And then when you see them, then you come and put up the wall. You can still get above this wall as well by jumping on these boxes just here. So you can still always come down as well on top of it, but they can't, which is nice. So yeah. I think that that wall can just be a bit more difficult for the attackers to maneuver if they know what they're doing. If your opponents don't know what they're doing, then feel free to use this wall in mid the whole time. Now, as our raise here, your job is going to be primary rotator and primary helper wherever help is needed, right? So you might be helping Sage in the early kind of round, you know, if they do come up towards mid just here, but maybe your Omen needs some help and gets pushed back and they're coming B main, so, you know, you're going to lob a nade from down here, right? This is kind of, and then if they go towards A, right, you're going to be the first one to go and rotate back this way, and just, you know, feel free to happy to leave the Sage, particularly if they've still got wall available to them or the wall is up, you know, feel free to leave and just get across here to A. So kind of as this raise here, you're kind of, you know, the one that's kind of going between the different sites and, you know, being wherever you are needed. Now, our Jet's job here on A will be a couple different things. If you've got an op, obviously, you can be more aggressive, try and get down towards A main, you know, try and get a kill, try and get set up in a good position. But if not, you know, you're just looking to play for kills as a Jet normally would in any of these kind of areas. You could be on site, you could be towards ramp, you know, just really just playing around, being a nuisance, you know, getting that dash activated and, you know, looking for a kill and then getting out if you can. And then finally, for our Cypher here playing in towards A, it can always be useful to just put a trip in here towards Vents, particularly if we do have multiple people here. Generally, Vents is the area that, particularly in a lot of ranked games, or I suppose a lot of your Premier games, people just won't explore that much, which makes this trip high value, right? Because if we've got 2 players in here towards B Heaven, and your opponents aren't going this way very often, and this trip is staying up a lot of the time, well, that means that we can just often keep these players here, right? And our Jet can get aggressive towards ramp, and you two can just focus on A main, whilst this trip stays up, and these two can feel pretty safe as well. So, in this kind of setup, where we do have the 3 players towards B, you know, having this trip in Vents can be pretty useful. But now I'm just going to give you a bevy of different Cypher cams and Cypher trips and setups and whatnot to use here on this A site. Let's start with the cam that Fnatic always do when they play Cypher on this map, which is up around this kind of area towards Heaven, just here. The point of this cam is that it can see both of these areas, right? Towards Ramp, you will see people's feet. Right, so as I'm walking up here towards Ramp, you see my feet and you get good information that that's where I am. But also, if I'm coming down A main and I'm coming in this way, right, I can start to see you as you actually come on towards A main as well. And this camera, you know, is quite hard to destroy, and particularly when you're coming on site and focusing on a lot of things, you won't be looking up there to get that camera. So this is a very handy camera that you'll potentially want to use. And of course, there's a bunch of different Cypher cameras as well. If you're playing against a team that likes to rush the site a lot and goes for a lot of fast execs, then putting your camera towards this little billboard just there, on like that, this is a very useful camera where, again, you'll get to see, you know, how many people are actually here towards A main early on, and that's going to be very, very useful to you, because if, you know, they do like to go for 5-stack rushes and you see 5 people here straight away, then that's a lot of information. But if you see no people here straight away, you know, that's also a lot of useful information. So a camera like that can be pretty useful as well. Other cameras you can come and put anywhere kind of towards up here is pretty good. There's ones that you can like hide back there, but it doesn't really matter, you know, just anything like this just to get that information is perfectly fine. One kind of a really annoying cam to deal with for your opponents is one just kind of like up here that just sees through the glass. So for instance, if I'm coming towards the A site just here and I'm over here, you can see that's the top of my head. You can't actually ping people through this glass, but it's an annoying camera to deal with if you're the opponents, and again, we'll just give you some nice information of what's going on in towards A main. Now, if your opponent is doing a lot of setups like, you know, the common kind of meta Viper wall across this way, maybe they know what they're doing, maybe they've watched this video and they're going to put Cypher cages there as well. You can also just come and put a cam kind of anywhere up here that will actually just kind of see over those cages or see over that wall, just to give you that information of what's actually going on. You know, are they walking past it, all that kind of stuff with a camera just like that. In terms of trips and setups, of course, you've got trips like this in towards A main. I mean, you can do ones off this box here. You can do one the other way off this box. You can do, you know, ones across here. Nice little kill trip there. You can do, you know, kill trips across the stairs here. Really, there's quite a few different options, you know, in terms of trips that you can do. If you want to play in towards site, a good option to have is to put double cages here, right? So let's say we've got a camera set up somewhere and, you know, we're playing heavy on towards the site. We've got these double cage setups, which just allows us to maneuver around different areas, right? You might also want to put a cage just kind of like here. This is a good cage to potentially, if, you know, you are playing back on the site or whatever, but at some point need to get out, right? You can just do that and allow yourself to get out. So any of those kind of things. Also, trips back here can be very, very tricky for your opponent to deal with, because, you know, by this time in the site, they're expecting that, you know, there's not going to be any more trips. Oh, we run into one, you know, free kill there or something like that. And again, you could play for kills here in Heaven with a cage like this, right? If you do have some kill trips on the floor, you know, you hear them coming in, you just put down this cage, wait for the trips to go off, start shooting at them, all that kind of good stuff. When it comes to playing Jet and Cypher here over towards the A site in our default setup, yep, this trip towards vents is going to be pretty useful. And then really you can use any cameras, any trips, any cages that I just showed you are all going to be somewhat useful to you as well there on the defensive side. So be mixing it up, right? Don't go for the same setup all the time. Go for maybe different setups based on, you know, what your opponent is doing. If they are a defaulty team a lot, then, you know, this camera in towards Heaven's pretty good. If they are a rush team, right, this camera towards A main is pretty good, right? So mix it up. Depends on what exactly your opponent is doing a lot of. But yeah, there's a ton of different setups that you can do for this A site. Okay, our second setup here is going to be a heavy B main setup, and there's different variations of this, but this might be like the most basic one, where towards A we're basically doing the same stuff we just talked about, and same for Sage here in towards mid as well, right? You might do either of the two walls we talked about before, but you might have the Raze here helping out with the Omen early on towards B main. So what you might add in here is like a Raze nade early on out towards B main. You might add in an Omen teleport across here as well, right? Get this one way up and then just get this crossfire going and just heavy control B main. Now, I would recommend you do a setup like this, or maybe even a more extreme version of it, right? Maybe even a version of it where, you know, the Sage is here as well, and we're also throwing like a Sage slowdown here as well. I suggest you do this early on in the half. The reason that we want to do this early on in the half, at least once, but maybe even multiple times towards the start of our defensive half, is because we want to make it seem like we are heavily defending B main. right? And the reason that we want to do that is because it's going to make this one-way seem more threatening than it is, right? Because later on in some of our other setups, our omen might be back here, right? Again, throwing this one-way, and there might be nothing behind it. But if we have early on conditioned them that, oh, well, you try and come B main, you're in a lot of trouble, right? That's going to make them think like, oh, don't test this one way, right? Because there's actually 3 people there. When in fact, there's no one there, right? So I would suggest early on going for like a heavy B main setup, be it the Race being here across as well. Or if you bring the Sage across as well, what I would suggest is probably put your Jet in towards kind of Vents area, just here, watching mid. Potentially with an Op would be a pretty good setup here with just the Jet in there. And then just have your Cypher, you know, playing somewhere towards Heaven, maybe trying, or backside maybe, you know, just trying to play for kill trips and whatever, you know, on towards the A site. So that's like a kind of variation of it. You might go for the more, you know, normal variation, or if they are like a 5-stack, we're just rushing B all the time, maybe bring the Sage across as well, and, you know, have that slow in there with the nade as well, and make sure you are not coming in B main. You can also use the Omen Flash if you need to, right? All of that kind of stuff. Just bombard them with utility and basically say you are not coming in, because that will help us later on when, you know, we've just got our Omen sitting back here and, you know, our Sage and Razor in towards Heaven, because this one way then gets a bit more respect. Okay, for our next setup, we've changed it up a bit. This time we've got our Cypher in towards B, and our Sage is actually towards A. So let's see what this might look like for Cypher on the B side. Okay, in terms of Cypher cameras here on B, there's a couple different ones you can use. One, obviously the most common one you'll be using is this one up here, that just sees the people's feet as they come through B main. Right, very normal cam. You just stand on that box, do a little jump throw. If you wanted to mix it up a bit, you can put a camera just on top here and you know, kind of look down as they're coming in. You can also see in towards Heaven just there. Other cameras that you can throw ones here in towards Heaven. This is quite an effective one if you come on this box and just throw one up here at the top of Heaven. You can see down there. You can also use it, similar sort of idea, but, you know, put it on this kind of wall. So again, it's going to see in towards Heaven, but also see people coming out towards B main just there if you want to. You can also potentially throw a slightly different kind of cam up towards this, right? Where, again, it's going to be similar to sort of the first cam, but doesn't see as deep, right? But will still be a bit of a different cam. And this is one that a lot of people, you know, won't expect and maybe won't destroy, because particularly in like higher rank games, you know, people will get used to destroying that one, but not so much up there, right? So yeah, this is one that you'll probably get quite a bit of value from as well in terms of pinging people. And again, it doesn't see quite the information that the first one does, but it still can be pretty useful. In terms of trips for this B site, you've got obviously some of the normal ones. You can do them off this bin. You can do them off this little jug here as well. Some nice kill trips. Off this one, you can do one off the door just like that. Which is quite nice as well. So, you know, all kind of trips for here. Obviously, again, similar sort of thing, you know, little kill trips in here as you start coming to kind of towards the default plant, you know, towards these stairs, you know, a trip like that or something can be quite nice as well, right? All those kind of options. Obviously, putting a cage in here is going to be fairly standard for you potentially if you want to. You can obviously do the one ways up there that I've forgotten how to do, but I'm sure Google it. You know, there are one ways you can do there as well to be useful. And yeah, that's kind of your trips here for the B site towards Heaven. If you wanted to do a trip, often you'll just be doing something like that right off this box. Will be kind of your normal trip here to do towards B Heaven as well. Now for the rest of the map, you've got your other 4 agents kind of, you know, guarding towards mid and A, and there's a couple different variations you can do. One thing that's going to stay the same though is how you use the Sage. So in this setup, we're going to be pretty much by the barriers to start off, and we're just going to put up a Sage wall across A main just like this, right? And we're pretty much going to do this at the start of the round. Also gives us a free ult orb if we want it as well, but obviously this just stops anyone, you know, coming in here towards A main early on, and can just be very useful, particularly if they don't destroy it. It can be a very good wall, again, if you're playing against a team that likes to rush a lot, right? Because again, if they're just rushing B main and A main, well, they're either going to be here and you're going to destroy the whole wall and you'll hear about it, and then you can throw a Sage slow and whatnot, right? And you can just throw a slow down in here and really slow them down and get those rotates in, or no one's going to destroy it, and then you can pretty much, you know, just leave for those 40 seconds, you know, whilst it's up. Basically, you can then just defend one half of the map. So you could put this wall up in here as well. You actually might want to swap the Raze and the Jet in this kind of instance if you are playing a team that rushes a lot, because you also might want to combo a Raze nade there as well, just to really like hammer it home you are not coming in. But one other way that you can use this, and I would suggest you do this, like maybe on an eco, or, you know, maybe as just kind of a surprise tactic, is put the Sage wall up here, put the Cypher kind of default setups or whatever setup the Cypher wants over towards B, and then these 3 are going to walk down mid. Right, so you might smoke off one of the sides of mid here, right? Be it to either way, and then you're going to walk down. And I would suggest, other than that smoke, you kind of silent walk down, and then you just fight as a team. And as soon as you get contact, maybe then, you want to omen flash or whatever, throw your nade, whatever, and just get down here and just try and fight them in kind of mid. And again, if, they're destroying this wall early on, right, then you have the choice of going for kind of a fast flank if you want to, right, to help out with this stage. Same thing over towards B as well, right? If that Cypher is getting contact towards B, again, you could maybe go for a fast flank and, be in a very good spot early in the round, come behind them and get some free kills. Okay, our next setup is going to look something like this. So, again, we're going to have any of those Cypher setups over towards B, whatever you like. And our Sage is going to be doing similar to what she was in the first kind of examples, where either the wall is coming in towards mid or in towards B heaven just here as well. But then these three are going to get aggressive towards A main. So what you might do early on here, and this can be a very good setup if you have your Raze ult in particular, is, you might send a boombot out here first just to see if anyone's there, right? If this boombot doesn't see anything, maybe then, you just pivot off it, you go back, right? You start to rotate over towards mid and just leave like one person here. That can be fine. Let's say the boombot does take contact though. That's when you're going to go crazy. You might start throwing Raze nades. You might start satcheling out, get, the Raze ult online and really just go for it, right? And get those kills, right? Whilst that's going on as well, we also want to omen flash them. So it might look something like this, right? We've sent out the boombot first, and that's managed to find, some people out towards here. And then straight away, as soon as that boombot goes off, it's flash from the omen out this way, right? Flashing them just there from this kind of position. Maybe a jet dashes across, the Raze satchels, the Raze ults, right? We go at them, we kill them, right? Maybe good to use with jet knives as well and get up in the air, right, around here and just really dominate A main. And then again, they either get pushed back or maybe it was just one person that we've managed to kill. And again, then we've got all of this control. We could go for a flank if they kind of, see what's going on. But potentially we don't have to either. Also, we can do this setup with the Sage rather than the Jet, right? So we might bring our Sage across instead and put the Jet in towards mid. This will be a good setup if, again, we have that Jet up online, right? So for this kind of setup, if we do have the Jet, let's say in vents just looking down here towards mid, you might, have a Cypher trip over towards heaven just here with the Cypher kind of playing backside B with the kind of rest of their setup. And then you're going to send these three in, and instead of, you're still going to send out that boombot to get contact and whatnot, maybe then you go for a slow with a nade, ult, all that, Oma flash, get that kill, and then get out. And then afterwards, once you've got that kill, if you do bring the Sage over instead, what you could then do is potentially just wall up, right? And so this is kind of what you'll see a lot with this comp, is you can kind of just mix and match the pieces, right? Depending on kind of what's going on or what you feel like, what you're comfortable with, you can just kind of, maximize the pieces and kind of, move them around and whatever, and find similar sort of results, right? So that's kind of what we're doing in this instance where, we have swapped it around, but we're still confident in this kind of setup. Okay, for our next setup here, we've got the Cypher is back over towards A, doing any of those kind of setups again. Could be playing for kill trips, could just be playing to stay on site, could be getting aggressive with our Raze here. Our Raze is going to be over towards A, and again, as soon as you see any of that contact, you might want to go for a Raze nade, using the camera here that we showed, kind of up towards this billboard, just to see, then the Raze knows whether to throw this paint shell or not, depending on how many people are there. That can be pretty useful as a combo as well. But really what this setup is all about is the Jet, because our Jet is going to be here over towards B main, and the idea is you're going to use the setup when your Jet has an op and is staring down towards B main. And what I would suggest here again is going for this kind of 3-player setup towards B, where your Omen maybe starts towards heaven, still doing that one way. Again, practice that one way from different points of the map. This is like a good example of how that can be useful, because you'll start in here, and then again we want to throw that Sage slow out towards B main, just to mean that again this one way is going to get held for a bit. They're not going to know that it's an op behind it straight away. You don't have to refresh this smoke, of course, when the op is kind of settled here. The idea is just that, no one is getting through that one way and Sage slow at the start of a round, and then your op you can just leave, and the Sage can fast rotate across here, and then again potentially just put the wall up here in heaven, and your Omen then can rotate towards A, and you can just have this kind of setup here. Again, maybe you want to go for a trip in towards vents if they do fast go towards vents or whatever reason, right? And you end up with this setup where you've got an op here, you've got the Sage wall there, you've got 3 players towards A, and you're feeling very confident about where you are, right? So this again is another great little setup for, just having the whole map essentially being a problem for your opponents. Okay, and for our final setup, we're going to talk about Jet opping over towards A. Now, here's the thing. If they don't have a Cypher or Viper, or if they're not doing some kind of, smoke block off here towards A main and towards ramp, then you need to be abusing that with an op, okay? Because, if you're all the way back here, this is a free kill. Like, this is just free. I mean, it's free multiple kills, potentially, right? Whether you're back here or maybe back towards kind of the pillar, this is free, right? If they're not blocking this off, this is free. And you should be abusing this whenever you can, with an op in these kind of angles, if they're not, effectively smoking you or flashing you off the angle. So yeah, do that a lot. If they are smart and, they are blocking this off with Cypher cages or, Viper walls or whatever it is, right? And they are doing that, then you might need to get a bit aggressive and end up kind of, on an angle like this instead. And we'll talk about how we're going to get you set up in this kind of angle. Okay, probably the best way of doing it is to actually almost fake like we're doing that aggressive setup that we did with the Omen. So our Cypher will be out towards B, and we might end up with a map that looks something like this. But again, we can do this boombot and nade, and again, this is why, doing some of those setups where you were aggressive early, you can then start to fake it, right? Where we do this boombot, and then, if the boombot sees someone, we throw a nade, right? And then it looks like, oh, last time they did this, right? They got very aggressive on us, and they pushed out. That might make them scared, which might give us the time to get this off. Just walk down here and getting very aggressive on this angle, right? So you can see how we're using other setups to get set up. For this one, you also might bring the Sage over here instead as well, right? And send that slow out again. It can be very useful out here as well, just to get the op walked up into this angle. And then as soon as the op's there, you can essentially just leave. Okay, and then our last setup here is going to be a very, very interesting one. A little trap setup for you. So for this, as Cypher, you're going to come and put your 2 trips in pretty normal positions, right? Nothing too fancy there. But then you're going to come and put a camera up in here towards vents, right? So you're going to put a camera something like this. The point of this camera, again, is that it sees the feet of people walking up mid just here, and this is when we spring the trap, right? So they're not going to be suspecting us just here. And then as soon as we see these feet, that's when we're going to spring this trap. So what this is going to be is it's going to be your Omen here is going to send out a flash, right? So you're going to flash down from kind of towards vents just here, towards kind of wherever those people are in towards mid. You're going to throw a nade that banks off this corner and just lands down there. And you're going to send it with a Sage slow as well, banking down here as well. So the idea is that we're going to get a flash, nade, slow, all in there based off the Cypher camera in here. This can be very useful. Could be a good pistol round to use as well. Your Jet's just kind of fighting over towards B main and seeing what's going on. You're basically just playing full retake A. That's why you've got just these double trips here, just to tell you if people are coming towards A essentially. And you've got the trap here set up in towards mid. Now, after you've thrown this utility, hopefully, if they haven't died to the nade, they still should be blind by the Omen paranoia, so then you can come and just swing as a trio and, hopefully, find whoever's left who hasn't quite died to the nade, but has probably taken quite a bit of damage. Now, if no one comes towards mid in this setup, what you might want to do instead is, instead of, going for the kind of trap there, basically just put up your Sage wall across mid, and then you can use it to just fast rotate to wherever is needed, because you should know that mid is only going to be used for a lurk at that point, so this wall is going to stop any lurk for quite a bit of time, and you can just flood to whichever site they are actually going to, right, and get there very, very fast as well. Now, when it comes to retaking on split, and this is going to be true of both sites here, I'll just talk about in generals because, again, retakes can take all different forms and sizes. But in general, when it comes to retakes here on split, you simply must retake heaven, right? If you've lost heaven control, you simply must retake it, right? You are not going to do well by flooding all the way out here, all of your team, right? Obviously, if it's a 1v1 or whatever, maybe even a 2v2, right? Feel free, right? Then it's not too big of a deal. But, if it's a 4v4, 5v5, and you all try and come out this way, good luck, right? Good luck coming out this way into this crossfire. You will never win. So you simply must retake heaven first, unless you have again, like a triple flank or something, but essentially don't all come out of CT, and that's the same for A site as well. Again, if you all just try and come out this way, I mean, good luck. Again, good luck against this crossfire. It's simply not going to happen. Now, if you do take control of heaven, or maybe you never lost control of heaven, particularly towards this A site, and your opponents have just come in here, and maybe your Cypher was playing in heaven for kill trips and whatnot, right? That is actually perfectly fine to do, because then what you can do as a retake, if you still own all of this space, is now when they plant the spike, you can retake from 3 different angles, right? If you can come down here and start to retake this space as well, down ramp, and come towards the A site this way, you know, you're coming from 3 different angles and different elevations as well. That's going to be tough for the people in here, right? If that's the only space that they've got. And so, you know, playing for retake on A, I think is perfectly acceptable. Less acceptable maybe for B, as it can be a bit trickier to retake this site at times, and so you might want someone to at least try and get some kills as they're coming in towards B. But if you have to, that's, you know, don't worry about it too much. But particularly on this A site, if you can stop them, and particularly if they don't know what they're doing in Postplants and all stay on the site, and you notice that, right, that they commonly have, you know, all 5 players here on the site, or everyone who's alive is on the site, then yeah, play for retake on this A site and come and, you know, barrage them from different directions, and you will destroy them most of the time as long as you can hit your shots. Just be careful though when you are retaking, because Split is a map where, you know, reflanks from mid can be very, very common, right? People staying in towards this area for the attackers, you know, waiting for you to retake heaven and then come this way and then slowly coming up behind you. You need to be aware that that is a distinct possibility on both sides. So, you know, very much keep an eye out for that, because that's what I'll be advising you do on the attack side. Okay, and so now let's talk about that attack side and what you are going to be doing. So let's start with some defaults, but first I'm going to focus on Cypher, because you, Cypher, are going to be out here towards A most rounds, if not every single round, and I'll show you the setup that you are going to be throwing most, if not all, of the time. So let's talk about this Cypher setup over towards A. And what you're going to do probably before the round starts is you're just going to put a trip there pretty much every round. You might as well. And you're pretty much going to throw this setup every single round, or at least one kind of variation of it, because what you're going to do is you're going to come on top of this box and you're going to find the middle of this just here. It's kind of towards the middle of the pattern here on the rocks. It doesn't have to be completely perfect, but, you know, just anywhere kind of towards the middle. You're going to look for this umbrella here and just kind of towards the bottom there of that umbrella, and then you're just going to do a jumping throw like so, and that's going to land in towards A main. And then you're going to look towards the top of this just here. This one's going to be a non-jumping throw, so just a normal throw, and you're going to send that out there, and that's going to give you this setup. And what that's going to look like when you detonate both cages is that people from ramp cannot see what's going on, and people from A main cannot see what's going on. And you're going to put this setup up at different times in a round, right? Sometimes it might be straight away, sometimes it might be very late in the round. And the point is, when you put this setup up, is that they're not going to know. This could be 0 people behind it, right? You could be about to do a full 5-man B Exec and you put up these cages, but they don't know that, right? Or you could be just kind of lurking up on your own, right, with these cages. And it's just you here, but they don't know that. Or it could be full 5 people, and that's the power of these cages, right? And this is how we're going to use them, is we're going to confuse them with how many people are actually behind those cages. I don't know. So people are going to have to stay here, but also they're not just going to straight rotate, because it might just be no one, right? And that's the whole point of this setup. Now, cameras that you can throw with this as well. It's going to be a couple different cameras you can throw with this setup. One is just kind of in towards just this thing just there, putting a camera like this. You can actually start to see a bit towards heaven if you angle it kind of towards the far side of it just here. So I'll show you if I'm in heaven just here, you can just see the top of people's heads just there, and obviously you can see out towards ramp and what's going on. So a nice little camera just there. The second camera that you're going to throw commonly as well is just going to be up towards kind of below the giraffe here, right? Just something like that, that again sees down towards A main just there and what's going on. And then this third camera is a little tricky, so you might want to get into a custom game and just practice it, because you need to kind of be strafing to the right as you kind of throw it. You're just going to be on your little box here, right? And you're going to do a running jumping throw, kind of strafing to the right as you saw just there. And it's going to get the camera out here, which just gives you a bit of a different angle, right? Again, just giving you a bit of a different camera. It'll see if anyone pushes up, of course, and particularly if they push up from ramp, right? You'll get a good angle on them, and they might not spot this cam straight away, and it just sees a bit of a different angle in towards A main just there. So that's going to be your Cypher's job most rounds, right? Literally most rounds, your Cypher will just be doing this setup. A lot of the time, he has the trip to know if he gets pushed, you know, if he walks back at any point. You got the different camera setups here and the different positions, you know, and I would just say mix them up whenever you can. But now let's focus on the rest of the team. And so this is the Cypher setup you're going to use pretty much every single round over towards A just here. And you can use the different cameras that obviously I showed you just there. Make sure you're mixing that up. But in terms of what you should do with this setup, that is completely up to you, okay? And it depends round to round. And I would say mix it up. Sometimes you're going to lurk up with this setup, right? And particularly you can get into this corner just here, kind of, you know, by the little platform here. You can get into this corner and maybe just listen out for rotates, right? You're pretty close to the site at that point. So, you know, you can kind of, you know, just listen in and see what's going going on, hear people moving about as, you know, things going on in the rest of the map and whatnot, see if people rotate away. Or you could try and, you know, go alone up towards ramp and see what's going on there, right? Again, you've got to find your own timing. Sometimes you'll just put up the setup and just leave, right? And just make sure that you communicate to your team, like, you know, what's going on over towards A and what you've seen or what you've done, right? If you have looked all the way up into ramp and you've got this far, right, maybe it's a good idea that the rest of your team then starts to come towards A because you're in a good position, right? Or if you just put up the cages and you feel like they're getting aggressive on you, so you didn't want to and you've actually retreated a lot, that's perfectly fine as well. You know, you just need to basically be mixing up and whatnot with when your cipher goes and when you stay home. But now let's talk about the rest of the team. And to start off with, I'm just going to tell you the basic fundamental principle of this comp before we get into any defaults or execs or anything like that. Just the basics of this comp and these 4 agents. Okay, because here's what this is going to look like. Whenever you actually start to go towards site, it's pretty much going to look the same. You're just going to move the pieces around split, essentially. What's going to happen is there's 4 lanes for you to flash on this map as Omen, right? Here's one towards B. You could move it slightly across this way if you want, but anywhere, you know, out towards this kind of way. You've got one in towards heaven just here, right? From anywhere kind of there. You're going to have one towards kind of ramp from either here or even down here, right? Something like that. And you're going to have one towards the A site from, you know, kind of like towards this direction, towards this little cubby here. Those are the 4 flashes you're going to use. And the idea is, when you flash, your duelists are going to run in behind it, right? They're going to dash, they're going to blast back behind the flash to try and catch people who've been caught by that flash. Your Sage is then going to follow up, and with the space that the duelists have hopefully maybe gotten a kill, you know, with that flash, your Sage is then just going to wall behind it, right? So it might be a wall here in heaven, and I'll show you all the different walls. It might be a wall, you know, on towards the B site here if we're going B. It might be a wall in here towards kind of ramp if we've come up this way. It might be a wall deep on the A site, right? If we've taken the whole A site, right? Whatever it is, that's pretty much going to be the cookie cutter. We can move it around, right? And just do the same thing pretty much just across various points of the map. Okay, so let's start off with our first default here, and this is going to be our mid default. So we're going to have our 3 amigos just together again, and our Omen is just going to be watching towards B main here. You know, nothing serious, to be honest. You know, just kind of having a quick check, you know, just basically checking, are they being aggressive in B main, right? We're not taking any fights or anything like that. We're just literally checking, are they pushing on us, essentially, for this Omen just here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to smoke off one side of mid. Now, you can change this up if you want to as well, or, you know, if their best player is commonly playing in vents or whatever, just smoke them off, right? You know, just if their best player is playing on one side a lot, just, you know, smoke them off. Some teams will play in vents a lot, some teams will play in vents not at all. So, you know, it kind of depends. Sometimes that means that smoking off vents sometimes will be useless, sometimes will be very, very important. So just pick one, right? And you can mix it up as well. Just make sure that that's communicated to the team. But let's say in this instance, we're going to smoke B heaven, and then we're going to come out here as a trio here, you know, swinging together. Make sure on this vents angle that we know, you know, we're together here and fighting this angle together if there is someone there. And then we're going to end up in this kind of spot just here. Now, as we start to come up towards mid just here, what we're going to do is we're then going to send the boombot in towards vents here, right? So we're going to send the boombot and see if anyone is actually towards vents. Make sure that we're not sending this boombot at too tight of an angle. So if we send in the boombot from like this kind of angle here, it's not going to clear this close corner, right? So we needed to clear that close corner. So make sure that we're sending it at a, you know, a tight enough angle to where it will clear that angle. Now, the boombot might see someone and you then might throw a nade at them, or it might see no one, right? And then you might come and just take this early control just here and see what's going on. And you're going to end up in this kind of position. And again, your cipher might have done different things. Your cipher might be up here. Your cipher might be up here. Your cipher might be back here, right? And again, that's going to come into your decision making as well. How far has your cipher gotten up, right? If your cipher is all the way up here, or maybe even all the way up here, right? Then that's going to make this more attractive to actually start to come towards A. You know, your Omen might want to start rotating it back across here, and you know, then you might just go and try and take a heaven control and then get towards the site. Now that might not be the case. Your cipher might be all the way back here, and in which case you might think that going B is the better option as well. So we have different options here based on, obviously, at this point where we think is best, you know, what our cipher has done, has our Omen seen any aggression in B main, you know, where do we think the players are, right? All of that kind of stuff is going to come into our decision. But now I'll show you the different kind of branches that you can go off. So let's say we are going to come in towards A, and for this we probably want our cipher at least kind of towards tucked up here. We don't want our cipher all the way back here if we're coming in towards vents, or at least not, you know, early on here if we are going to do this split. If our cipher is back here, but we do feel like we don't want to go B for whatever reason, they might have like, you know, certain ults there or whatever for whoever's commonly playing there, then we might just group back up and come here, right? Particularly if our cipher hasn't used the cages yet. If your cipher has not used the cage setups, then you can feel free to come back here, particularly if their camera hasn't been destroyed as well. Feel free to come back here at any point, right? And just group up A, and then you can just put the cages up, and we'll talk about that in a second. So that's one option you've got. If these cipher cages haven't been used, then you can always just, you know, pivot back A and then just go A if you want to. If the cipher cages have been used, then that's going to not be as attractive as an option, and we might be back in towards mid, and then we have this option. So let's say we're coming towards A, our cipher is somewhat pushed up here, they've used their cages, then we can start to come towards vents here, and we have a couple different options, right? So as we're coming up towards the vents and we get up there, we're going to go for a nade, right? Or if we haven't used it just yet, and our sage slow in here towards heaven, right? And we're going to try and pinch on these players in towards ramp if they're anywhere in here, or if they're in towards heaven, we're swinging from the cipher back here, and we're coming up the ropes at the same time, hoping to kill anyone we can in this kind of area. So for the sage, that might look something like this, where we're throwing this slow, away we go, we're pairing that with a nade, you know, we're killing anyone who's in here, right? And then we can do this kind of wall. So you can do a wall just across here that essentially you can now jump on top of, but they can't, right? So you can use this box, get on top of this wall, and even drop down if you need to, and obviously it's going to stop them coming in this way and hopefully, you know, want them to go that way. Or if you've got really deep control and you think you've managed to kind of, you know, beat these rotates, you can then go for this deeper wall in here as well, right? Something like that. And you know, now you can even cross this way and really start to pinch in on these players. Kind of depends on what you feel like the timing is, right? How many people are still around in this area. If you feel like, you know, they're all towards B, you've managed to fake it out, then that's great, right? And you can just pivot back and, you know, go for this really deep wall and really start to put pressure on towards this A site. Now, one quick note here when we're coming into vents, kind of got a bit ahead of myself just for a second there, is that we always need two people coming down here at the same time. Okay, what I would suggest the easiest way of doing it is if one of you kind of follows down the rope this way, right, and comes down kind of, you know, and drops down at a normal kind of angle, and the other one of you jumps this way, right? That's going to create a problem if anyone is in here, right? Because they're going to have to aim there and there, right, which they can't do at the same time. So make sure that we're dropping down together, at least as a duo, to try and deal with anyone. If anyone is staying in here towards vents, we should be able to at least go 1 for 1 if we enter vent like that. So if we have got to this point where we have started to pinch on heaven, our omen should be rotating back towards A main. Their job will probably be to get to A main as soon as they can, and then if there are still people alive on the back site, then they're in a good position to flash from here, and they're going to come in this way whilst everyone else is either flooding from maybe CT if we've gone for that deep wall, or from heaven, and you know, we're just cascading on these players just here, and then we're dashing in and we're absolutely obliterating them. But let's say we've got to this point, but now we want to go to B instead. We don't like what we're seeing at A. Our cipher hasn't got much control, and they're, you know, pushed all the way back, and they've used their cipher cages and whatever. And so we want to go to B instead. The smoke has started to fade. Now what? Well, our omen is going to come back over towards this spot here and go for this flash just here. So you've used the flash, you're now going to dash in behind this and take this space. You might want to use a raise nade up in here as well if you've still got it, right? So a flash like that, you might jet smoke in here and dash up just in here. So you've now flashed in, you now dash in behind it, you use the nade, in you come, and now, you know, you're going to take B and start to take this control. Your cipher at this point should be on their way back as well, coming back towards either B main or through mid. Your cipher has an option here. It's kind of up to them what they want to do. If you've made this call nice and early and your cipher knows that that's going to be the call, then they can probably get back to B main. If it's a bit of a pivot, like, you know, minute decision, like, then you can come back through mid, and you're going to be the late lurk in this post plant. And at Sage here, you're coming up towards B main, and what you can do is you can do a wall something like that, right? Why is this a good wall? Well, again, we can jump on top of it, but they can't, right? So I can come back here, and if I want to get really aggressive and do this, if I feel it's necessary, then that is an option that we have, you know, going for us. But if not, that's perfectly fine as well, and you know, you don't have to do that. It's a pretty aggressive play, so just putting up a wall like that, nice and simple, and now you're flooding into the site. And again, if you haven't had to use that nade just yet, then sending a slow nade, if you've still got it, over towards this, can be very, very effective, right? A nade in here with a slow like that, very, very effective if you haven't used it just yet. And then you're going to be, cascading onto this B site and hopefully, just destroying them again. And so for Omen, here's what it's going to look like overall as a round. You're going to start off with a smoke here in towards kind of, the B heaven or towards vents, either one. Again, depends on exactly what you want to do. And that's going to be fine. And then as, our teammates are taking, some of the control and they're getting up towards mid, at that point, we're just, kind of watching here to B main. We might give it a quick jump peek there, see if anyone's there. Okay, no one's there. I haven't seen anyone. But they could have pushed up here, right? I haven't been watching the whole time. But now we're getting ready to do our kind of, oh yeah, let's do our B split. B split, guys. Let's go for it. Okay, I'm getting ready to smoke. I'm smoking now. I'm getting ready to flash. Okay, flashing now. And then, okay, as you flash, now we're going to smoke off CT just here, right? So, okay, now we've smoked both things. We're good. And now, I'm kind of ready to just kind of slowly clear out B main again. And again, if your teammates have not seen anyone on B site, that makes it more likely that they push B main. So you just need to be very, very careful here, clearing everything out. Make sure that it's fully clear. Check this close corner. Do not give them a free kill. And then, you'll be good. And then you should have the whole site. Okay, if we want to do a B main kind of default here, what we're going to start off with is the Sage Slow just in here, right? The Sage Slow is just going to put a lot of pressure on people, right? If they are trying to peek in towards B main, it's just going to make that fight for them so much more difficult. And if you see them as well, you can combo this with some other utility that we'll get into. So you might start off with something that looks a bit like this. You've got your Omen, Raze, and Sage just here. As I said, you've started off with this slow up. Cypher's over towards A again. Don't worry about it. He's just chilling on his own just there. And your Jet is just kind of watching again for any kind of push out of mid. You're not swinging this angle. I know you're a Jet. Don't worry about it. You're just basically checking, are they actually pushing out of mid early on just there, right? As our goal here is to just take B main control. So we start off with this. If you do see someone, right, and they are trying to still fight you, you can always put a Raze nade in there and, good luck to them. God bless. But then you're going to use an Omen TP across as well to get to this box and swing at the same time, and hopefully you should have that B main control. And you can use a similar sort of setup for this as well to take B main control if you've lost it earlier in the round but want to then go back and take it. Now, once you've taken the B main control from this default, you have a couple options. You could just go for a B Exec, right? You could just bring your Jet here and go, okay, let's just go towards B. And again, your Cypher can just be kind of a late lurk on this one in towards kind of the deep part of mid just there and come back here. That's perfectly fine. Also, yeah, nice little trick if you can, put up these Cypher cages, like, about 5 seconds before you do a B Exec, right? Just to keep these people kind of grounded here, keep these people wondering what's going on. And then you do a B Exec and then it's like, oh, they're on B, right? Something like that. So that's perfectly fine to do. Or you can then, come back towards mid if you want to. And, now you've got this control, maybe leave your Omen here towards B main and, then start, smoking off mid. And then again, coming for either of the A splits or the B splits that we talked about as well. Okay, our third default is going to be one over towards ramp just here. And for this one, we might just start with the Sage over towards B and just have, again, that kind of Sage slow in towards B early on, kind of making it seem like you might be going towards B again. But this time you're not, right? And with the Sage slow, again, you're just checking here. You might come back and just kind of see with your Omen here, just to create this little crossfire if they do get aggressive in mid. But basically, your job is just to make sure they aren't being aggressive in B main. And then, every so often checking in mid towards as well. Now for our Cypher setup here, we are going to do something slightly different because instead of doing the 2 normal cages we're normally doing, instead we're going to throw 2 towards A main, right? So we're not sending one towards ramp, and we're going to do this one of the cameras as well. We're going to put our camera on there because we want to see towards ramps, okay? We're trying to default towards this area. This is the space we're going to take, and we'll do 2 of these cages here because we're going to do 1 to allow us to cross here. But if we ever want to go back out or if we feel like we need to escape, that's why we have the second one here, right? So that we can put it up and we can escape if we need to as well. Obviously, we're trying to come to this area, so we don't really need to... We're trying to kill anyone in this area, so we don't need to block off their line of sight here. We want, instead, an escape route. So make sure that anytime we're going for this kind of A ramp default, that you put the 2 cages here in A main and don't bother putting one on ramp instead. And probably best to use this camera as well to, get an early vision of, oh, if someone's peeking there, oh, they're in a lot of trouble. Let's get that kill. Now for Omen, what you're going to be doing here is you're going to be in this kind of area, so towards the kind of sewer, and you're going to be tucked in this corner. And you'll need to aim slightly up for your Omen Flash here. But you know, you can ping it out to start the round, right? And then just go for an Omen Flash, kind of aiming towards the kind of ping. So, you know, something kind of like this. With your Omen Flash just there, it's going to catch a lot of people towards here for your duelist to then take care of, essentially. And then what you're going to do is, again, just be checking that no one is coming out here towards mid. You might want to throw a little smoke for your teammates as well if they are going very well and taking like deep having control. And, you know, then you could throw a smoke all the way over here, but that's probably a bit unlikely, maybe a bit ambitious. Yeah, you're then just going to be checking, okay, are they getting aggressive over towards this kind of angle, you know, and can you help out? Now, I'm awful at raise. In fact, I'm not even going to attempt to show you because it'll be embarrassing for me. But I've been told that from on top of this box where the Cypher, you know, normally is putting the cages from, you can raise Satchel kind of all the way to kind of, you know, midway up or all the way up ramp, essentially. So, you know, throw a Satchel down there and, you know, go crazy with it, right? And then one will come here or something and you'll get up here, right? And yeah, it'll look exactly like that, but just do it fast. And then you'll be up here, hopefully timing with the Omen Flash. Your Omen is waiting to flash for you, and then you're going and killing them. And as a Jet here as well, you might not want to use that dash straight away. Again, if your Razors use both Satchels, you might want to use the dash a bit later. So you might just be running up following your Raze here. I know you'll want to compete for the kills, but let's give the Raze this one. And yeah, you can just be up here and kind of, you know, just then joining up, and the Cypher should be coming along as well. And you will have taken this early ramp control. Now, in terms of options, when you've kind of got up to this point, you have a couple options, right? There's normally going to be some kind of fight here, right? There's normally going to be someone there, I would say. So you're probably going to get into some kind of fight, and maybe no one dies, maybe everyone dies, who knows, right? But you have options open to you. You've got the second cage here to allow you to cross back if you feel like, you know, that's what you want to do. Maybe your Sage has heard nothing, right? These two can then maybe start working their way up mid if they feel that that's necessary, right? And then you could try and pinch if you feel like this is free or you've killed the person there. You could try and pinch on vents and then end up, you know, kind of going back or coming towards B. Like, you know, it's kind of up to you at that point. You do have options open to you to maybe just go back, do a B Exec, you know, just call your teammates across and then just do an A Exec, right? Just wait for your Omen and Sage to kind of get back to this kind of position, and then you guys, you know, go up heaven. Your Omen smokes deep here, smokes there. You guys come this way, we go this way, and we go. Yay, 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 we get kills, woohoo, right? That kind of thing. It's really, you have quite a few options to either pinch on vents, come back, go for it. It's all up to you. Okay, now let's look at some of our execs, and let's just say we're going for a full B main exec. So at this point, let's presume that we've already got the B main control. So you can use this, you know, like I showed you before with the Sage, the Raze, and the Omen, right? You send a slow in here, you TP across, right? You swing together. Like that can be the way you take B main, and then, you know, you're bringing the Jet across as well. Your Cypher is probably coming back for a lurk position here towards mid, and you're ready to do this B exec. What does it look like? Well, the first thing I would suggest is trying to actually get out looking through the choke point, right? Again, swinging this as a team, trying to find any kills, and then getting ready to hit the go button as soon as possible. So we've got to this point, and so what are our procedures here? Well, as a Sage, we have two different options, and we might have seen an opponent, right? Either jiggle picking like that way or this way. You know, what we're going to do is we could send in a slow, you know, towards kind of that way or that way and pair it with a nade, right? If you've seen someone, you know, pair this up. If not, then, you know, just pick a side essentially and just throw your nade and a slow that way. And then we're just going to go for the good old fashioned wall just here, you know, putting it across there and running in. Now, once you put up this wall, always check this corner. That will be part of your duelist job as well to peek it for you. But, you know, make sure that you are, you know, ready to swing on anyone here. Because, again, we're safe from all of this. So we needn't worry, essentially, about all of that. As our Jet here, we're going to aim to try and get on top of this pillar just there, right? So it might look something like, you know, smoke on top of it, just like that. I didn't activate my dash, sorry. And then we're going to updraft and dash in towards this smoke. And obviously the smoke will be somewhere like this. And we're going to end on top of this pillar. And then you can, you know, drop down as you wish. Or if someone is back here, right, and you're on top of this, then what you can do, obviously, is just spray them down from this kind of angle. And then, you know, work your way through the rest of the site as you come through rafters here with your Raze hopefully below you. And as the raise, you're just going to blast back in along the ground here so that we have this kind of almost double angle, right? We got the jet on top of this box. You got the raise just across the floor just here. You've put up the sage wall, and, you know, you might have sage slowed and sending your nade towards one of these two areas as well. And then you've got this high-low to peek anyone on rafters or anyone who's still on the site over towards here. And then once you've kind of cleared out all of this area and this close left angle as well, then you can start to make your way over towards the site. Now, whilst this is all going on, your Omen is going to do this. You're going to start off here with the smoke towards heaven, right? This is going to become pretty much before anything else. Maybe as you're throwing the slow and the nade, the smoke is going to come in, right? Then once the smoke is in, then you're going to flash, okay? And then only after you flash, that should be the go button for both your raise and jet to be going in with that flash. Then you're going to smoke CT. Don't worry about smoking CT before you've actually sent in the flash, because we're putting up this wall, which your sage can stand up on, but we're not going to be coming around this angle a lot, right? And so no one deep CT is going to see us, right? Because our jet and our raise should be coming through this angle here. So unless they're standing like right here, right, which is a very weird angle to be in. Normally people are retreating if they're back here. You know, they're not going to be there, right? No one who's standing back here will be able to see your jet and raise by the time that, you know, you've had to flash and then put in this smoke, right? So that's perfectly fine. So that's your procedure: smoke, flash, smoke, in that order. And then you should be good to get on the site, plant the spike, and then play post plant. Now, when we're doing our full A exec, we're always waiting for the cages, right? The cages are our go signal to get into this position here and get ready into our position to go towards the A site. So we're waiting for this kind of setup here. The opponents have no idea that we're here, and then we're hitting that go button ready to come towards the A site. Now for jet here, what that's going to look like is you're going to activate your dash. You're going to curve your smoke around like that up to heaven. Then you're going to updraft dash into the smoke just here, and then you should be able to clear out anyone just here very easily. If anyone tries to swing out on heaven on you, you can battle them up here. And then you've got a good nice angle as well for clearing back some of these angles back towards the site. And then you can help your raise potentially if, you know, someone's back here on elbow, pinch on elbow by, you know, coming down through the different directions. Now for raise, what you're probably going to do is send a nade down there, you know, just towards kind of CT and make sure no one is peeking from that kind of angle. And then you're going to satchel, and I might not be able to do this, I might be able to, but, you know, you're going to try and satchel up on top of this box. I hit my head against it, but I'm sure many of you will be able to do it just there and end up on top of this box and then try and just fry people from on top of that box, right? Gives you a nice little angle, and then you're clearing round, and again, then you're pinching on elbow as the final kind of part of it with the jet coming through the other side. Your nade should hopefully stop people pushing out of CT, or at least, you know, make them push out into many people. So then you should be good for that fight, and then hopefully you will have the back sight. Now for Omen here, your procedure is going to be slightly different to the B Exec because you are going to do both smokes first, right? So you are going to start off with smoke and then smoke. Now that nade should stop anyone early. I would suggest doing heaven first and then going to this one and then flashing. The reason is, if you can time it well with your raise here, you want to be smoking first before anyone is actually gone onto site, right? So that first smoke should be kind of the first part of the entire exec, really, other than the cipher cages. Then your second smoke should be landing as the raise is throwing the nade, and then your flash should be going in across here as your raise is then satcheling in for them to land here just as the flash has gone past to then get those kills, right? So that's going to be smoke, smoke, then flash on this. The first smoke should be going in before anyone else has really done anything. And if in doubt, if you feel like your raise has missed the timing or has gone too early, then you can just not use the flash and just hope that they'll be okay, because team flashing them is probably not going to be great. And for Sage and Cypher, you guys are just the traders and kind of, you know, kind of the back lines here. You can send in this Sage slow just here. This is one where you actually might not want the Sage to have the spike, because you might want to just go for a fast wall in towards CT, something like that, right? Which might not give you the time to fully plant. But you send in the slow at the same time as the nade. You know, trade out your jet if anyone has killed them from back here, or, you know, trade out the raise for anyone back on site. And then you're just going in, putting a wall there in CT. For Cypher here, you're just going to be kind of the back line. You know, you could put a trip in here towards ramp, which can be very helpful if someone does try and reflank you there, and maybe just end up in kind of like this angle just here, right, where you can then just play the post plant, you know, and, you know, be in a good position. You might have your camera, like, you know, like we said, like, you know, somewhere up here from before, and so then you can just use your cam to just see what's going on. You've also got a trip there. You should have a trip behind you as well, and then, you know, you're just kind of this nice little backstab layer to part to it, where then you can start forming the post plant. You can do a variation on this A hit that kind of becomes a full A heaven hit. which is kind of weird, but let me explain how you can do that. Because essentially what you can do, again, you can kind of, you know, curve your dash there and then come in here, and then you can attack heaven. The thing is, you've actually got 4 agents that can get up on here, right? You can use a Sage Wall if you want to. You can use, you know, the satchels. You can use an Omen TP. And so it's possible, in fact, to do all of that, essentially. You know, put down maybe a smoke here in CT, but then, you know, send in this jet dash. You end up in here with your Raze, with your Omen, and then your Cypher and your Sage come this way, and you guys end up coming this way, and you kind of pinch on heaven. Very weird kind of idea, but if you want to go for that, if you want to practice that, then by all means go for it. Now, one thing, if you are going for that kind of play, I forgot to mention this Sage Wall just here that actually goes through the wall. It's a very safe one to do, but it just completely blocks off people coming from that way, right? That if we are going for this idea of pinching on heaven, this can be a very useful wall if we do get in towards this area, and then, you know, sending down a Sage Slow just there, and then coming back towards site. Just a quick note, if we are doing a B split, how to entry on this site as well for your jet. Let's say we've activated our dash. We might even put a smoke in there if our Omen hasn't had time to, right? Just a little smoke there. You can actually do this as a one-way as well if you put it up against the wall kind of thing, which can really stop your opponents coming in. And you can just aim for this box just here, really. And, you know, just dash across onto this box and then, you know, look to clear out hell as it comes down there. As your teammates are swinging this way, you're swinging that way. You also can get on this little angle here just to clear the rest of this. And then, you know, go and path your way through the normal site as you would. Now, I've often mentioned lurking from this position, particularly for your Cypher on these B Execs, is going to be pretty useful, and it is very useful, in fact, because you can just stay super out of the kind of action zone here, back here, and wait for your opponents to actually come out of the site, particularly if the spike is planted in the open, which you should be trying to do, but not always, right? Particularly if you've done a B split, then, you know, you normally will maybe get the chance to plant there, if you can do that and you still have some heaven control. But then just lurking up as your opponents then actually start to come back up onto the site, you're going to get a lot of free kills here. And as I said, if the spike is planted just in this kind of corner just here, you know, you'll have like a free reign on anyone who's trying to defuse the spike, and you'll be pretty good. Now, in terms of places to play for the B site, obviously if we are just going for our normal B exec and we put the wall up there, that means that we aren't going to have a ton of control. So we're going to probably be playing like this crossfire with B main here. That's going to be an absolute prime location one. If we have taken like all of the site, then, you know, having someone in hell just here and potentially behind this box as well to swing off of them, and as well towards B main as well if we feel like a lot of them are going from heaven, right? 1, 2, 3, really nice little kind of combo to swing on anyone coming from heaven, and, you know, just get a lot of free kills from that kind of position. Can be very, very handy indeed. When it comes towards the A Postplants, we're either planting the spike just there that's open to heaven, or probably in the corner, or, you know, somewhere safe like back there, is all fine. But this one is probably our best plant spot because it means that we can late lurk up towards ramp, and our Cypher probably on these A execs will be, you know, kind of holding this kind of position. So if he's noticed, yeah, no one's come there, you know, he still might have his camera up there, right, and he's noticed no one's there, then he might try and, you know, lurk back up. So you might be playing in your Cypher by planting here late to allow him to get this kill. So that's our best plant spot. Obviously, a lot of the post plant positions are going to speak for themselves. You know, back here is going to be one, down by this corner is going to be one where you can create kind of a crossfire with someone over there. You know, for people coming out of CT, you will need someone holding heaven for you, though. Back in this corner is quite a nice little cheeky angle as well, you know, that can catch people off quite often. And obviously you're going to be playing back here a lot, but for your Cypher you are going to be here quite often, right, in this post plant, just kind of towards this corner, or maybe, you know, towards this corner, or not that corner, but, you know, somewhere here or somewhere there, right? Just kind of checking towards ramp with the camera, you know, just sitting back here somewhere. And the thing is as well, we have a lot of agents who can get up here, right? Be it Omen, be it Jet, you can get up here, create a nice crossfire with your Cypher from here, right? This is going to be very tough for them to break if someone's down there and you're up here and you've got a camera looking at them as well. Like, that's going to be incredibly hard for them to take ramp control. And then again, if it is planted for heaven at any time, you know, you can pivot back and go and, you know, take ramp control, take heaven, and then get that last kill on the person trying to defuse the spike. So it can be very useful. You can also get a bit of a you can also get a bit of a small angle here on like this as well, right? So if you're feeling confident in your shot, so you have an up or something, right, holding an angle even like this could be somewhat useful. So yeah, nice little position to play from. And so that is going to be split. My last point here is just going to be for this attack side, particularly when we're defaulting towards mid. This is a great way of understanding the map and gaining an advantage on this map, is to quickly pivot towards either side. So let's say we've taken towards vents here and we're in towards this spot. You know, maybe we've got our smoke up here. you know, if it can be very useful to, you know, kind of generate rotates from your opponent. If, for instance, our Cypherists come up here, put down the cages and just start spamming bullets, right, and just making noise in general, and then you start jumping down here in towards vents. Maybe you send like a Sage Slow, you know, kind of in towards heaven just here, kind of the one I showed earlier, right? Maybe even a nade with it as well. Get those rotates coming in here, and then pivot back towards B, get your Omen in position, and then you flash for B Heaven instead, and you come this way and you do a B split instead, right? This is, or you can do the opposite, right? Where you fake the flash in Heaven and, you know, you take Heaven control maybe, but then very quickly, you know, maybe you even put like a smoke, a jet smoke down here, right? And then just actually pivot back, right? Almost threatening, like you could be CT, but then you just pivot back and come this way instead, and then your Cypher lurks up. You know, this is how you're going to beat rotates on this map, is by pivoting from one side of the mid to the other side of the mid very quickly. And, you know, if you've got both main controls and you've taken some of that mid control and you've pushed them back to kind of, you know, the heavens and the sights, then you can quickly threaten, we're going this way. No, actually, we're going that way. And that's going to be a very effective tactic for you. So I would be practicing that mid default. I would be practicing, you know, pivoting and, you know, some of those utility combos for each side. And then, you know, being free and having the knowledge of, hey guys, let's fake an A split and then go back to B Heaven, right? So that your Omen knows, okay, I need to be in position to flash again, and going for that kind of thing. So yeah, make sure that you're doing those kind of things, because it will be very effective on this map. But I hope you found this guide somewhat useful. Let me know in the comments down below. We will be doing one for Lotus as well. I know it's all a lot to take in, but this is basically as briefly as I can get it done to you, because it does take a lot of time to explain all of, you know, kind of the key concepts and ideas. So let me know in the comments down below, and have fun, and I hope you win your games.